Those of you keeping a list at home for the villains Hillary Clinton has blamed for her loss last fall, there were the Russians, there was Jim Comey, the Macedonians, there was sexism, there was dumbness from the middle of the country, and now Bernie Sanders has made the list. In newly leaked excerpts from Clinton's forthcoming book, What Happened, the former Secretary of State says Sanders' lengthy primary challenge did, quote, lasting damage to her campaign and paved the way for Trump's unexpected victory. She also calls many Sanders supporters sexist and says that Sanders only ran in order to disrupt the Democratic Party. Richard Goodstein is a Democratic strategist. He's a former Clinton advisor, and he joins us tonight. Richard, I'm going to, the obvious temptation for me is to point out how deeply sad this is and to play shrink and she needs help and when's she going to blame her husband, and she probably already does. And I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to deal with the facts of her claims. How were Bernie Sanders's bearded, sandal-clad, often gender-neutral, hypersensitive supporters sexist? I don't understand. How were they sexist?
Tucker, and look, there was a lot, if you went on Twitter and in the blogosphere, to kind of support her claim. And I know you like including the Macedonians in this litany, as if somehow the Russians, as if somehow the Russians, who the intelligence community to a one say meddled in our election, and the outrage is that Donald Trump shows zero interest in getting to the bottom of it. And just this week,
but to beat up on the poor Macedonians, I mean, imagine, look, and we've spoken to actual Macedonians. We didn't let this matter lie because we're journalists, and we went out and found Macedonians. And if you knew the deep resentment they feel toward her and her enablers, including you, I mean, it's a whole can of worms. I'm not going to open it. Let's get back to the sexism.
I feel sorry for your
How were Bernie Sanders supporters sexist? This is the least sexist group in the history of sexism. Like, what does that even mean?
You know what? Bernie Sanders got off so easy in this campaign, and frankly, in all the postmortems about what happened. This is somebody who, again, talked about nationalizing the banks, the oil industry, and telecom. And I guarantee you there's not one of your viewers who knows that, because nobody during the campaign talked about that. And he
said it in every speech.
No. He didn't talk about nationalizing the banks, the oil companies, and telecom in his speeches.
But here's it. Look, I'm not defending Bernie Sanders' silly socialism at all. But I do think you're allowed to have opinions that are different from Hillary Clinton. You're allowed to try to break the monopoly that she had on the Democratic Party. Indeed, it turns out legally anyway, you're allowed to run against her in the Democratic primary if you want. But that's her real complaint, isn't it? That someone would dare run against her.
Here's the complaint. No. You're belittling it. The fact of the matter is, if a third...
intentionally.
If a third of the people who voted for Sanders and then Trump had voted for Hillary, she wins. Frankly, if the Jill Stein voters had voted for Hillary in Wisconsin and Michigan, she would have carried those. The point is not about the Clinton monopoly on the Democratic Party. The point is that Bernie misled his people 2-1 by all these policies that no policy expert thought he could deliver on. But these people were idealists, or some of them were desperate. But the idealists actually believed it, and they badmouthed her to the end. Some voted for Jill Stein, some voted for Gary Johnson, and some may have voted and held their nose for Hillary, but shame on Bernie Sanders for not doing more to bring them along. May
I ask you a question?
Now in part responsible for the policies that we have.
Okay. But has it occurred to you that Bernie Sanders had a lot of kooky ideas, I agree, but he sincerely believed in a lot of them? And staying next to Hillary, who believes only in herself, who's utterly transactional and shallow, and not super bright, actually, to be totally blunt with you.
Come on.
That he diminished her. No, his sincerity diminished her because it revealed her to be the careerist that she is. Is that his fault?
You know, it's funny, Tucker. I hear everybody talk about what a terrible candidate she was. I hear Trump surrogates talking about what a marvelous candidate he was.
I don't think she was a terrible candidate. I'm not saying that. I don't think she would be a good president, honestly.
It's amazing, isn't it, that the terrible candidate got over 3 million more votes than the fantastic candidate. So, look, the fact of the matter is you can belittle her intelligence. You're the only person who I think has intelligence that believes genuinely that Hillary Clinton's not a particularly smart person, okay?
Look, I'm not being mean. I think she's smarter. You know, maybe she's smarter than I am. I'm not saying she's dumb or anything. I'm just merely saying I've followed Hillary. I was at the newspaper in Arkansas 25 years ago. I mean, I followed the Clintons pretty closely for decades. I've never heard her say one thing that wasn't banal and conventional. I'm being sincere. I really am. I'm not saying she's dumb, but I haven't heard her say one interesting, insightful, thoughtful thing. Not one. Everyone was like, oh, it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, it's just like, it's pap. It's crap. It's boring. You didn't notice that?
Somehow or other, 48.2% of the public got behind her and only 46 supported Trump. It is amazing to me when people say, well, the electorate supported Trump and he therefore should do X. They didn't. They didn't. I mean, I give him credit. He won the electoral college. I don't deny that. But the fact is, the virtue of this book will be a reminder that the Russians could meddle with our system. They are now kind of public enemy number one. And the fact that, look what Putin said today about North Korea, incidentally.
All right, it's the Russians. I want you to come back, and we're going to have a long Russia conversation, because now I'm finding it pretty funny. Richard, great to see you tonight. Thank you.